used.
Sarah speaking to me earlier this year. Let's talk now to various people with differing views on this. Laura Higgins, Helpline Manager at the UK Safer Internet Centre. Rupinder Bains, who is Managing Director at the law firm Pinder, Reaux and Associates, specialising in cases involving social media. Martin Horwood, Lib Dem MP for Cheltenham, supports a change in the law. And Emma Carr from the campaign group Big Brother Watch. Welcome, all of you. Rupinder Bains, we've spoken before, but I think it will be worth just explaining to our listeners how the law stands at the moment. What legislation can you, as a lawyer, currently use to help your clients who might find that explicit photographs that they agreed to being taken were uploaded to the internet?
Unfortunately, there isn't anything specific that can be used for revenge porn. What we do have are legislation in place for harassment. So if the police are on side, and this is where a big issue currently lies, it's the education for the police in recognising that this is a real issue, they can proceed under harassment legislation. And we have things in place which control electronic images being used for a purpose to cause you alarm and distress, and this is precisely what this is. But other than that, there is only the civil routes, and if you go through the courts for injunctions to compel the removal of images online, then that's going to be costly, and it does take time, and very often the damage has been done.
What about copyright? The image is of an individual, after all.
Yes, it is. That's right. And usually, as far as copyright is concerned, it's usually held by the person who's taken the picture. Okay. But there have been moves in Europe, at least, where human rights are taking more of a prevalent role. So there was a decision in May this year where a lady took her ex-partner to court. He didn't have any intention at that time of uploading any images, but it was a preemptive measure. And the courts decided that her human rights, her right to privacy, carried more weight than him owning the photographs, and compelled him to destroy all the images that he had of her.
Okay. So, therefore, do we need a specific criminal offence, bearing in mind the example you've just given us?
I'd like to see how they're going to bring in a new criminal offence for this, because it's not just going to be the person putting the picture up. I mean, it may not be the ex-partner. It could be somebody else who has had access to a laptop or a phone. It could be the website owner who's also committing a criminal offence. You know, once it's up, how can you compel that person to then take it down? It's not just a criminal offence to post. It's also probably to host that website as well. So just making it a criminal offence for the person who's uploaded it's just part of an answer here, because once it's up, and then it will, the internet is vast. It will very quickly proliferate onto many, many other sites.
Emma Carr from Big Brother Watch, do come in here. Let's have a conversation about this. Do we need a specific criminal offence to try and stop explicit images of an individual being put on the internet without their consent?
Well, as has just been said, I think it's an incredibly complex issue, and it's not something that's going to be resolved just by creating some new legislation. I think one of the things that we need to think about as well is that a lot of the time these websites aren't hosted within the United Kingdom, so compelling them to remove images or remove content is quite difficult. So I think as has previously been said, a lot of the time this is about educating the police and potentially the Crown Prosecution Service issuing some guidelines on the existing legislation. So we've heard about harassment legislation. There's the Sexual Offences Act, the Malicious Communications Act as well, and educating the police that this is a real issue. This is criminality can take place, and that when complaints are made, they should pursue them as they would with any other crime. But as we've seen with social media prosecutions generally, so things that people have written or posted online and then they've been arrested and detained, it's a lot of the time it's down to individual perception of where that line should be drawn, what constitutes revenge porn, for instance, what is pornography. So it's not a cut and dry situation. So I'm glad Mr. Grayling is saying he's going to have an open discussion about this, but I don't want to see any knee-jerk reactions.
Right, OK. Laura Higgins, you are the Helpline Manager at the UK Safer Internet Centre. Do you think we already have enough laws to cope with this burgeoning phenomenon, if I can put it like that?
Yes, I mean, I agree with most of the comments that have been made. We do have legislation in place that should stop people from harassing, from malicious communications, all of those sorts of behaviours. What we're not seeing is consistency in how those are applied practically. So we are, of course, delighted that this conversation is happening, because what we hope that comes out of it is some very clear guidance around, if this is what's happening, if this is what the behaviour is and it's happening on this site, this is how we can deal with it. Our experience with most of the victims that come to us is actually they're not seeking a prosecution. As has been mentioned, in not all of these cases is it as a result of an end of a relationship. Sometimes their photos would have been stolen, or a laptop that's been hacked. What they actually want is just to have that content taken away. They want it to disappear. What we don't have at the moment is the power to demand that of these sites. And so hopefully with some stronger legislation, that will give us the leverage to negotiate and get the content removed.
Right. I mean, I've got a couple of messages, one from Steve and one from Andy. And the sentiment is this, effectively: why would a woman let her boyfriend take nude pictures of her in the first place? I have no sympathy.
It's very sad, and actually that is really reflective. I mean, in Sarah's report, she said that was the response that she was given by the police when she approached them, and regrettably that is something we do hear time and time again, that there really is very little empathy. Well, you shouldn't have done it, it's your fault. We live in a culture where, whether we like it or not, people are sexting. Technology has become part of people's relationships. And unfortunately, yes, it's not wise, but telling people they shouldn't have done it really doesn't help them when they already have. So we need to just, wake up. This is a problem. Let's look at how we deal with it and how we support the victims.
Rupinder, have you come across that reaction before?
Yes. And it is true to some extent. We're living in a digital culture now, and this is part and parcel with trying to run, I guess, with the internet. Something that Maria Miller had said in one of her interviews is she wants to run faster than the internet. I don't think that's possible. It's not going to happen. The internet is vast, and you put something up and it's on 50 sites within minutes, if not more. So trying to run faster than the internet is going to be an impossibility.
Right. I've just got this news in, which is from the Liberal Democrats, and this is from our colleagues at Westminster. The Liberal Democrats are to try and make revenge porn a criminal offence, say my Westminster colleagues. Revenge porn, as we know, because we're discussing it, the publication online of videos or photographs, usually of an ex, usually when the relationship's broken down. Two peers, Lord Marks and Baroness Grenda, have put forward an amendment to the Criminal Justice and Courts Bill which would allow for a 1-year jail term. Lord Marks says the peers will work closely with the Ministry of Justice to make sure the amendment is passed, which makes it sound incredibly simple, but as we've already discussed, it is a lot more complicated than that, is it not? But we will see what happens. Thank you, all of you, very much. Thank you for coming on the programme. Emma Carr from Big Brother Watch, Rupinder Bains, the managing director at the law firm Pinder, Reaux and Associates, and Laura Higgins.